Hey guys, Mike here. So today, I'm here to talk to you about Bill and Ted Face the Music. In this review, I'll be going over a brief summary of the plot, my quick thoughts about the film, and whether or not you guys should go and see it. So I'm going to try and keep this review spoiler-free. However, if you don't know anything about the film and you want to go completely blind, then it's just come back to this video once you've seen the film. So with that, let's get started, shall we?
How is that stealing if we're stealing it from ourselves, dude?
So Bill and Ted Face the Music stars Alex Winter as Bill and Keanu Reeves as Ted. In Bill and Ted Face the Music, Bill and Ted were once told they would write a song that would unite the world and bring peace to the universe. However, they find themselves as middle-aged dads still trying to write that song to fulfill their destiny. And so we have Bill and Ted Face the Music. Basically, guys, I went into this one with not exactly the highest of hopes for it. Because, to be honest, I really questioned whether they'd be able to capture the same magic that they did like 30 years ago. I mean, I'd only watched the first two Bill and Ted movies like last week, and I did really enjoy them, but I don't exactly have the same nostalgic attachment to them that loads of other people do. Having said that, though, I can really see why people consider these movies absolute cult classics. But nevertheless, didn't go into this one with the best of expectations. So, what did I think of Bill and Ted Face the Music? Well, I gotta say that I was really pleasantly surprised with this film, because like I said in my Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey review, I didn't really know where this movie was gonna go, because I didn't watch any of the trailers, didn't see anything about this one. All I knew was that it was another Bill and Ted movie. And honestly, I really like where they took this film. The fact that nearly after 30 years, they still haven't wrote the song, even though throughout the film they say it's 25 years, I didn't really know what the time frame was, but they still haven't written the song. And even in their middle ages, they're still struggling to come up with this song that's supposed to unite everyone. And the worst part is, they even actually achieve fame. They go on worldwide tours, but eventually, people just lose interest in the Wild Stallions. Pretty much to the point where the two of them could barely book wedding gigs. And this quest that they've been on for pretty much all their lives has just gone nowhere for them, and it's really just affected their whole lives. And you can tell, even though their wives still obviously love them, that it is taking a strain in their relationship. The only people who really seem to still believe in them are their daughters, who are played by Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy-Paine. And honestly, I didn't really know where they were going to take these characters, but at the same time, I was still optimistic to see where they were going to go with them. And honestly, I just took an initial liking to them, because they're pretty much just copy and paste of their dads. Especially Bridget Lundy-Paine, who was pretty much doing an accurate impression of her dad, who was Ted. Pretty much in the way she spoke, her facial expressions, the way she moved. Everything was just pretty much just doing a Ted impression. I mean, Samara Weaving was still good as well, though I don't feel that she was just doing a copy and paste of her dad's performance. But still, the two of them were just great together. And honestly, just when I thought they were going to really underutilize these guys because their dads go off in a time machine and they're just kind of left behind, and I thought, honestly, that was going to be the last we would see of them. But thankfully, they used the two girls' characters brilliantly in this one. There are actually quite a few points in this film where I was actually more interested in their story as opposed to Bill and Ted's story. Even though, admittedly, they were just on the same adventure that their dads were on back in the first movie. Collect a bunch of historical figures to fulfill a task. Still, nevertheless, I just absolutely love these characters. And honestly, I just wish they were in the movie more, they had more time to interact with Bill and Ted. I mean, as for Bill and Ted themselves, Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, now, really, this is probably the biggest risk of the movie. I mean, the whole movie is basically a big risk. Carrying on a franchise which had its last movie like nearly 30 years ago. So it would have been a real stretch of the imagination to see these two middle-aged men still trying to play the same characters they did all the way back in the 80s. But still, the two of them were just great. I really love that they still managed to capture near enough the same magic that they had back in the original film. I would say that Alex Winter was the strongest character out of the two of them, because at no point did I stop thinking of him as Bill. He always manages to feel like he stays in character throughout the whole film, whereas Keanu Reeves, on the other hand, because he's arguably, I mean, easily the biggest star out of the two of them, some of his other characters feel like they kind of slip in now and then. Like when he's trying to be intimidating, I'm just there thinking, oh geez, he's gonna go all John Wick on him. But this probably happens like one or two times throughout the whole film, and it wasn't really that distracting. It's only really because he's Keanu Reeves does it become a bit distracting at times. Probably a part where I would fault the film is that this one does feel a lot more serious than the other two films. I mean, naturally, in a franchise, the stakes have to get raised in order to make it feel like this one is more important than the last film. And you can't really go bigger than the whole of reality imploding upon itself. But still, even though this one does definitely feel more serious than the other movies, it still is lighthearted and fun. Bill and Ted act in the exact same way that they would if this situation was happening to them back in the first movie when they were still like in their late teens or early 20s. Except as they go along in this film, They have doubts on themselves because they've spent so long trying to write this song and fulfill their destiny. They really start to question whether they can actually do it. Whereas in the first movie, they just kind of went on an adventure and had fun. Even though they had the looming threat of being separated and Ted going to military school, they still had an optimistic look on the whole situation. Whereas in this one, though they are still optimistic, it does definitely dawn upon them that this quest is very important. And I would say this is a quite funny movie. I mean, it would have to be being a comedy. But you know, I did my usual thing. I put my laughter wall up and said, this movie has to genuinely make me laugh if it's going to get any kind of response out of me. And honestly, just seeing these two characters again, still acting like the same knuckleheads that they were back in the 90s, was just amazing and instantly got a laugh out of me. The scene at the wedding where they're trying all different kinds of instruments and sounds, just trying to find the perfect song to actually unite the world, was just hilarious. And obviously for long-time fans, they've got all the nostalgic callbacks. From characters to locations, they've got them all. Everything that pays the ultimate fan service to the Bill and Ted fanboys out there. And honestly, from a story point though, I pretty much knew where this was going from like the first 15 minutes. I won't say what exactly happens, because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but still, this story is very predictable. But having said that though, I really do feel like it earns its ending, because on paper, the ending that this movie goes for would seem a bit cheesy and honestly not very genuine. But because of the decent story and the journey that all these characters go on, I really do feel like it earns its ending. And I would say that I did really like this ending, except for the fact that it just kind of ends. There's no real wrap up to this film, and I was there just like, oh, well, I would kind of like to see what happened to these characters after the film, but, well, I guess that's it. It's over. No more Bill and Ted. Unless they intend on making another Bill and Ted movie, which I don't think a lot of people would go for. Overall, guys, I actually really liked Bill and Ted Face the Music. It was definitely a lot better than I thought it was going to be, because honestly, I thought this film was going to be a disaster. The fact that these two aging stars are coming back to a franchise that they haven't really been a part of for nearly 30 years and trying to recapture the same magic, it all could have gone completely wrong. Thankfully, even though this isn't an amazing movie, you know, the best comedy time travel movie ever made, it still was very enjoyable. And for me personally, I would say it's on par with the other movies. I would say that the first movie takes a slight edge because it did feel kind of fresh and it was a bit funnier and was definitely a lot more laid back than the other two films. Nevertheless, Bill and Ted Face the Music was an enjoyable watch. Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter played their characters brilliantly, and I feel they really recaptured the magic of their original performances. Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy-Paine were excellent, great additions to the story. The returning characters were great. It was lighthearted, it took itself seriously at points, but it knew when to kind of bring it back and remind you that it was just a really goofy teen, you know, time travel movie. And putting all this together just made a nice, enjoyable comedy that I thought, you know what, it was pretty good. But now, as for or not, you guys should go and see it. Honestly, if you love the Bill and Ted movies, then I think you'll enjoy this one. It's got enough of the old, whilst at the same time building on the new stuff, to make it feel like a fresh experience. Did this movie necessarily need to be made? Probably not. Is it a welcome addition? I would say so. So I'd say do yourself a favour, watch Bill and Ted Face the Music. Okay guys, that's my review of Bill and Ted Face the Music. If you've seen it, what did you think about it? And what's your favourite movie in the Bill and Ted franchise? Whatever it is, drop it in the comments below. Until next time, I've been Michael. See ya!